She's been published in Martha Stewart Magazine, People Magazine, Green Wedding Shoes, 100 Layer Cake, Brides, and so many more. She was named Best of the Knot 2024, and her florals have been shown on Shark Tank. The owner of the Little Branch in California, Megan McCarter.
Hi,
Hello. Welcome to the Beautiful People series.
happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I read that you don't necessarily follow the trends that are happening. You're more of a trendsetter. So what kind of process do you have to work through some inspirations?
That's interesting. I don't know if I would necessarily consider myself a trendsetter. However, I really try not to follow necessarily what everybody else is doing or what is
Yeah.
going on. In doing this for as long as I have, I feel like you see this one trend and then all of a sudden everybody kind of latches onto it, and the next thing
Yeah.
you know, all doing the same thing. I find that in that way you're sort of being a little more, you're not being as true to yourself if
Yeah.
you're concerned about what is popular and what's going on. So while I do have my certain aesthetics and things that I feel like I gravitate toward, I really try to, with each client, have an open mind and listen to the things that they like, what they gravitate towards, and find a way to incorporate, their likes and what they're interested in into the way that I would perceive it, and then execute it that way so that every event is sort of uniquely their own, instead of just trying to carbon copy what you're seeing out there, if that makes sense. While
Yeah,
maybe
100%.
aware of it, um, and when you see it for the first time, you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. But then everybody else is seeing it, and then all of a sudden everybody has, their version of that posted on their Instagram. And I just try to avoid that, because I
Yeah.
to find things honestly that like speak to me, not trying to seek out something that's popular in the moment.
Yeah. Do you find Instagram a help or a hinder?
Ah, um, I jokingly call it the bane of my existence, because I feel like it's sort of turned into a monster in a sense. I do love it, and it's a great forum, and I absolutely have to use it, and I find it crucial when I'm working with clients. But it does sort of turn into, there's a reality and then there's an Instagram reality. And I think even with the floral industry, people tend to post this pretty refined side of things. We joke in the studio all the time, especially with like installs. I'm like, wow, I don't ever recall looking that pretty and put together when it's 104 degrees out and I've walked, 8 miles lugging flowers back and forth. So while I do love it and I think it's a great tool, I do think it also enables people to sort of drift away from the reality of the floral world and kind of how it actually works and how everything comes together. It's very, I've never foraged in the fields wearing a beautiful summer dress and a big hat. I'm at the flower mart, like pounding the pavement, trying to find things that are going to work for that event. So I do like it, but it also can be a little much. And I do think people have a tendency to kind of go down a rabbit hole with that too, where they start to feel, insecure about their own work, or kind of start looking at what other people are doing instead of, again, being like true to what they have going on. Because again, I think it's sort of a forced reality. I'm not sure that it really necessarily reflects what's actually going on.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Um, so speaking of that, do you find that sustainability and the floral industry, this has just been such a tug of war between trying to be sustainable and trying to be, conscious of, our carbon footprint with foam and whatnot. What's your take on that? I had an interview with Kanan Marshall, and he was amazing. Like, he just does not think that, some things are realistic to, being foam free, and he's just unapologetic, and he's like, this is the way it goes. You have to use foam here, you don't have to use it here. What's your take on it?
I agree with that. At the end of the day, we're in an industry that produces waste.
Yeah,
What I make is a product that at the end of the event is not useful anymore. And I find that this whole sustainability thing can get taken too far in one direction, because I agree with that. Some things make sense, others don't. And then you start to counter with, oh, well, I could make this without foam, but then I'm using more product. I'm using more chicken wire. I'm using more, water picks. So now I'm using more plastic components or wire components to execute this in a way where if I used a piece of foam, I'd be using less product. That being said, we do in the studio try really hard to reuse, recycle as much as we can. All of our cages we bring back at the end of the night. All of our loamy dishes we bring back at the end of the night. We take the chicken wire off and reuse it. We compost everything that we possibly can. It's not all of it. We can't compost all the greens, but what we can, we do. So I try really hard to minimize that carbon footprint. But to be honest, we're in an industry that, even when you're processing your flowers and they're wrapped in plastic or they have rubber bands and
yeah,
all those things, and you're doing that week after week. So yeah, I do think there's a certain aspect of this industry where people really try to push, oh, I'm sustainable and I have no garbage at the end of the night. And I again, yeah, I don't think that's the reality of the way it works. All you
right.
do is do your best and try to, lessen that as much as you can. But yeah, there's some things that clients are like, oh, I want this look, that the way you do it is with foam. And some of these alternative products, they don't work the same. They're a very high cost and the end result is producing the same look. So, there's a lot of that, but we try to use floral frogs and bud
Yeah,
bases, things that are water based as much as we can. But yeah, sometimes foam is the way we have to go, or water picks are the way we have to go. Um, and we just try to approach it in the way that makes the most sense, where we're going to be using the least amount of product as far as what we're wasting.
yeah. Have you had clients ask for sort of organic flowers or all local flowers?
Yeah.
And do you just like cringe? Are you like, oh yeah, no problem? Like, what's your take on that? Because I know on my end, it is tricky. It's very, very tricky.
Yeah, I think if I said, oh, yeah, no problem, I wouldn't be honest.
Yeah,
Um, so I always say I really can't guarantee that, because if I'm ordering this massive amount of florals and X amount of farm only has so much,
yeah,
then for all I know, the next bunch could be coming from South America or Holland or Miami or up the street. I don't really know. I'm not the florist that I my level of work, I have too much work where I can't make sure and that I'm going to local farms only. And for me, it's not a reality.
mm,
If anyone can do it, I applaud them, but I'm not that person. And I also don't think it's realistic in the scope of, especially when you're getting images and design boards of things that clients want, and
yeah,
what kind of flower that is, and that doesn't grow in Carpinteria. So it's going to come from this place, this place, this place, and this place. So I really try to be honest and fully transparent with my clients. And I have had a couple clients that are like, we want foam free, only water. And I'm like, okay, then your look it's going to look like this. It's not going to look like these pictures you sent me, because this is clearly done with foam. And we're
yeah,
going to approach it in a different way. I don't ever want to misrepresent the work where someone is feeling that they didn't get what they were looking for or asking for. And there's a lot of nuances within the industry on how you build that and how that's done. And, I just really want to be fully transparent all the time. There's certain flowers where I'll only use artificial. because the real ones won't last. Um,
Mhm.
Bougainvillea, that is, people love that. It looks
Yeah,
great, but everyone that looks great, every picture, it's artificial.
yeah,
So I'll say I don't use them when they're real. They don't last. They dry out in they're beautiful planted.
yeah, 2 seconds.
Yeah, if you do you want your wedding to look good or do you want it to be real? That's one of those things where
Yeah,
it's going to look good, you have to use artificial. So I really try to be open in the beginning with all of those elements when I have an initial call.
nice. Going back to when you first started, um, what was your thought process, or maybe why did you navigate towards just doing events and maybe not opening a retail shop?
I don't know how retail florists do it. That's a whole nother ball of wax, and that's something I really know nothing about. Having to have a storefront, bringing flowers in that are going to be, specifically for retail sale in that store. When we started, we had done an event for a friend, and it honestly was like, oh, this could be a really fun side hustle. I never in a million years thought I could actually make a living doing this.
Mhm.
I think I sort of stumbled into the events because that was my initial thing. And then it sort of snowballed from there. Um, and the thing that I love about doing the events is, we work out of a studio. So every week is something different. Every wedding is different. Every color palette is different. So every week we're able to make really cool pieces and go different places. I don't know if I would feel necessarily as fulfilled if I was running a retail shop and then having that additional concern of keeping flowers that last longer. This is a perishable product, so it's got a short shelf life.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to, have someone there in the store from 9 to 5 every day. I really prefer just doing events and kind of having it be a one-off, and then the next week is something different. It makes it fun because sometimes we have spooky events or modern events or rustic. So we get to do different stuff every week, which I think we all really appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what do you think was your biggest struggle when you first started out, or even now?
Now I would say it's definitely the pricing. Um, after COVID, floral cost went through the roof, material cost went through the roof. And I feel like, and this was always sort of in the background with everyone, like people, why is this so expensive? Why does it cost so much? And it's like, well, on top of, the product, which I think on average has gone up about 40%
Yeah,
wholesale since COVID. We have a studio to maintain. We have insurance we have to have. We have, advertising, our phone, our internet, like all the things we need to run a business on top of the cost of florals. And I think, you know, clients don't really understand that if I have an event on a Saturday, I start working on a Monday, and we're here every day.
yeah,
And when we're doing an install, those can be 12, 15-hour days. And then you go back at the end of the night and you have to tear it all down. And then you're there the next morning to clean it all up and put it back on the shelves. So I would say at this point, like today, the constant struggle is sort of trying to justify your pricing. When I started, I feel like I was kind of in that sweet spot. And I really feel like the timing for me was, I was really lucky on the timing of when I started the business,
yeah,
because back then everything was still sort of, weddings are just done a certain way. And it was very traditional and sort of, well, you got this type of centerpiece on a table and your bouquet looks this way and that's it. And there were a few of us that were really kind of pushing the boundaries and doing things that were different. And I feel like I happen to be one of a handful of those people at that time.
yeah,
And now it's sort of, it's a flooded market, I think, at this point. And I think Instagram also had a little bit to do with that as well.
yeah.
You can be a great Instagram florist, a great one, but it doesn't mean that you can execute an event, a large scale event. I think they're two completely
True.
different things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What do you think is the best thing that you spent your money on for your business?
Getting a studio, my own studio to work in was it was the scariest thing to commit to because it's a huge commitment and I was
Yeah,
signing leases for years, but having this space and a workspace, a separate workspace with a professional cooler and all of our stuff here, I really appreciate that I have a separate space to work in and be creative in, and then I can go home at the end of the day. I
yeah,
toyed with the idea of like, oh, maybe I do want my studio in my house, but I don't. I really appreciate having this separate space here.
yeah.
So I think that's probably the smartest thing I ever did.
What do you hope for your business?
What do I hope for? That's a really good question. And to be honest, I'm really happy where I'm at. Um, we've been doing this for a long time. I have a great team with me that I couldn't do it without them. I appreciate them, and they're all great designers, and they all are helpful as far as like, okay, how are we going to approach this? What do you think about this? And I'm lucky enough to have an established reputation where a lot of venues already refer me or planners refer me. So
Nice.
I feel very lucky. There isn't anything that I feel like I'm lacking, and there isn't anything that I necessarily wish I had that I don't. I feel so lucky to be able to do this every day
Yeah.
and living at it. I really care about it. I put a lot into this business.
Check Patricia.
And yeah, I don't know if I feel like I would hope or wish for something more. I'm pretty happy where I'm at.
How long did it take you to get your core group of designers or freelancers to a place where you felt so comfortable or you felt like, okay, this is the dream team?
I've had a few versions of the dream team, you know.
Through the years,
Yeah,
right?
people come and go, or they realize like maybe I don't want to do this for a living and they segue into other things, or they move, or they grow and start their own business. Um, so I've had several, reiterations of a dream team, but I have my main person is Megan. She's been with me for five or 6 years now. And basically we're the same person. We share the same brain and the same name. So, we get all of that.
Well, that's
And
convenient.
exactly. But, there's several other people too that you just, when it's a good fit.
Yeah.
And when it's a good fit, you're like, come back. We'd like to show you how we do things. And we like having you here. And then we'll just straight up ask the question, like, do you like being here? Because we'd love to have you here all the time. And then we build, and then there's some freelancers we have that are professional freelancers that work for several different companies and they prefer it that way. So we'll have them in, when we have a really stacked weekend, or can you come in on this one day or this one day? But I would say you usually know within a couple months if someone's going to be like a really good fit. And I think a lot
Mhm.
to do with personality too. Um,
Yeah, for
just
sure.
yeah, like because we're in here looking at each other every day for 8 to 9 hours a day. So
Yes.
we have to get along. I think that's like the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. What advice can you give someone who's just starting out in the business?
Don't sell yourself short. I still get approached all the time asking for, oh, I'm a influencer. If you do my wedding and I can, or will you trade arrangements for this? You're creating art and it's your time and your money. And I think you have to have a level of self-worth where, you know, if you do that, that doesn't guarantee anything. If someone's going to post a picture and tag you in it, so what?
Right.
I don't really think that will make or break you. And this industry, like I said, just the product alone is so much. It's a high cost, and then it's your time. And I really feel like your time and your art are worth something. And even if you're beginning, don't think that, if you're doing someone's wedding because they're going to post a picture, that that's going to get you your next job. because that just cost you what, $4,000-$5,000.
Yeah.
You'd be better off advertising somewhere or doing your own shoot, you know, something that you really like, that you want to push your own aesthetic or your own style on your dime, and, you know, with your own input in there. It's florists work their butts off. It's a
Yeah.
hard job, and I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily realize how much time and effort goes into a bouquet or a mock-up or a whole event for that matter. You know, we've broken it down. We've had weddings where we look at just the install and we're like, wow, combined, that was like 45 hours of work just
Yes.
installing that event, you know, let alone everything else. So I just think it's really important to stay true to yourself and not, you know, don't go, oh, I'll take this wedding that's only $1,500 because I'm going to get some good pictures out of it.
Right.
Yeah, that always like slowly kills me inside when I hear, you know,
Yeah.
people in the industry talk about that. So I just don't think it's helpful. I think you're being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. Do you have any exciting projects coming up or anything you want to share with our viewers?
We, you know, primarily 99% of our events are weddings. And there's a bunch of weddings coming up that we're super excited about. We tend to get clients that are a little more, you know, into the fun stuff and kind of cool new ideas. So this year we have a couple really fun. We have like a spooky one coming up that I'm really excited about. We have a rainbow themed one that I'm really excited about.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's just like each client kind of meeting them and getting their vibe. And, you know, the thing I always like to tell my clients is like, it's your wedding, it's yours, not anybody else's. So
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. There's no formula you have to follow. Like, we can do this, we can do that. You don't have to have this, you can have this. So I just think that every week being able for us to be creative in a new way every week is what I think is what we're most excited about.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for coming on The Beautiful People and sharing your story. And it was really nice to get to know you a little better. Good luck with your weddings and events. And yeah, we'll keep checking back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was really fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Take care.
thank you.
Bye.